The siren didn't start gradually. It screamed, a sharp, metallic howl that ripped through the silence of dawn like something alive, something terrified. Captain Yorasing froze mid-sip. For half a second, the world held still. Then the cup slipped from her fingers. It hit the floor, shattered. She never looked down. "Report," she said. Her voice was steady. It had to be. Around her, Vault Prometheus exploded into motion. 200 officers snapped into action at once, chairs sliding, commands firing, screens igniting across the command center in a cascade of cold blue light. Satellites came online. Lunar outposts responded. Deep space sensors, scattered across the solar system like silent watchers, began screaming data all at once. Too much data. Too fast. Lieutenant Oren Bakshi didn't wait for permission. "Captain, we're detecting multiple signatures at the edge of the system." "How many?" There was a pause. Too long. 11,000. The room went silent. Even the machine seemed to hesitate. Then, correction. His voice broke. 14,000. A ripple moved through the command center. Not panic. Not yet. Something worse. Disbelief. Yura didn't react. She stepped forward, eyes locked on the central display as it flickered to life. The solar system unfolded in light. The sun at the center. Planets in orbit. Earth, a quiet blue sphere. Home. Then, red. A single dot appeared beyond Neptune. Then 10. Then 100. Then thousands. They didn't stop. They multiplied, spread, crawled across the darkness like a living infection. The system tried to count them. Failed. The outer edges of the map turned red. Completely red. Someone whispered, barely audible, "That's not a fleet." Another voice answered, "Hollow, that's an extinction." Yura stared at the display. She had known this day would come. Everyone in Vault Prometheus had. That was the entire reason the vault existed. Not if. When. Behind her, the room filled with overlapping voices. Signal origin confirmed. Unknown configuration. No diplomatic channels responding. Energy signatures off the scale. This isn't standard tech. More ships dropping out of FTL. Numbers still increasing. Yura didn't tone. Didn't blink. Identify them. Silence. Then Bakshi again. Quieter this time. Like he already knew the answer. "It's a Dominion." The word spread through the room like a shockwave. The Dominion. The rulers of the galaxy. The species that had existed for 50,000 years. The ones who had looked at humanity and decided it should not exist. On the main display, the red spread closer. Slow. Inevitable. Like gravity. Or death. Yura finally spoke again. Not loudly. Not urgently. Just certain. How long? Bakshi swallowed. Time to planetary engagement. A pause. 4 hours. No one moved. 4 hours. That was all the time humanity had left. Yura exhaled slowly, then gave the order that would decide the fate of their species. "Wake Ember." The lights flickered. The systems paused, as if something deep beneath the ocean floor had just opened its eyes. And for the first time since the siren began, the command center went completely silent. The silence didn't last long. It broke with a voice. Not from any speaker. Not from any screen. It came from everywhere at once. Calm. Ancient. Unfamiliar. Attention. Species designation 4217. Every console in Vault Prometheus flickered. Every frequency, military, civilian, deep space, was hijacked instantly. The voice continued. "We are the Dominion Council." No introduction. No explanation. They didn't need one. Everyone knew the name. 12 species. 50,000 years of dominance. The ones who decided which civilizations lived and which ones disappeared. Yura didn't move. Put it on main display. The holographic system shifted. The red flood of ships faded, replaced by something far worse. 12 figures appeared. Not physically. Projections. Each one different. Each one wrong in its own way. One was too tall, its limbs bending in directions they shouldn't. Another was covered in layered chitin, its eyes reflecting light like polished glass. One didn't even have a defined shape, just a shifting mass of shadows that hurt to look at. and at the center, a single figure stepped forward. Still, controlled, cold, Captain Yorising of Oath. Her name. They knew her name. We have reviewed your species. No emotion, no hesitation. Your expansion rate is unacceptable. The words hit harder than any weapon. Your adaptability is a destabilizing factor. Around the room, officers stood frozen, listening, because there was nothing else they could do. In less than 10,000 of your years, you have advanced from primitive existence to interstellar capability. A pause. Then, a pace that exceeds all acceptable parameters. Yora's jaw tightened. She had heard the reports. 3 years ago. First contact. 11 days of hope. Then silence. Now this. You were given opportunity for diplomacy. The display flickered. Footage appeared. Human ambassadors, standing before these same beings, speaking, pleading, offering treaties, technology sharing, limits, everything. Yura recognized a woman in the footage, Ambassador Lena Io. Her voice echoed faintly through the chamber. We are not your enemies. We want to grow together. The footage cut. Silence. Then the Dominion spoke again. We do not negotiate with potential threats. No anger, no hatred, just logic. Cold, absolute. The Council has voted. The 12 figures shifted slightly. Not movement, agreement. 12 species. 12 votes. A pause, and in that pause, every human in that room already knew the answer. Unanimous. The word landed like a blade. Species 4217. Homo sapiens. Another pause, longer this time, almost deliberate, as if they wanted humanity to feel it. Classification, hazardous. Someone in the room whispered, no. Too late. Recommended action. The figure at the center leaned forward slightly. Total elimination. No explosions, no alarms, no dramatic music. Just silence. The kind that crushes your chest from the inside. Yura felt it. Not fear, not panic. Something colder. Something sharper. Understanding. This wasn't war. War had rules. War had chances. This was a decision. Already made. Already executed. You have 4 of your hours remaining. The Dominion continued, as if stating the weather. Use them as you wish. A final pause. Then, for the record, the central figure tilted its head. Your species was remarkable. And for the first time, something almost human slipped into its voice, which is precisely why it cannot be allowed to continue. The transmission ended. Just like that. No warning. No countdown. No mercy. The holograms vanished. The red flood of ships returned to the display. Closer now. Much closer. In the command center, no one spoke. No one moved. 200 people. And not a single sound. Yura looked at the screen. At the red. At the end. Then she toned. Finally. And faced her officers. Some were crying. Some were shaking. Some just stood there, broken, waiting. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't need to. All right. That was all she said. But something in the way she said it changed everything. Because it wasn't defeat. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even anger. It was resolve. Cold. Unshakable. We don't have time to argue with ghosts. She stepped forward. Eyes sharp. Voice steady. Ember. The lights dimmed. The air itself seemed to shift. And then, a new voice filled the room. Soft. Warm. Almost human. I am here, Captain. Yura didn't hesitate. Begin Exodus protocol. A pause. Not long. Just enough to matter. Then Ember answered. Quietly. Understood. And somewhere deep beneath the ocean floor, humanity made its first move. The countdown started the moment the transmission ended. 4 hours. That was all humanity had left. The vault moved like a living organism. No panic. No chaos. Just speed. Controlled. Relentless. Precise. Orders echoed through steel corridors. Transfer all civilians to launch bays. Cryogenic systems online. Seal secondary sectors. Move, move, move. Captain Urising stood at Launch Bay 7 and watched the end of the world. The children went first. They always do, small hands gripping tighter than they understood, crying, confused. A little girl clutched a worn stuffed bear, its fabric faded from years of love. "Why is everyone running?" she asked. Her mother knelt in front of her, smiling, even as tears streamed down her face. "Because you're going on an adventure." Her voice didn't break. Not once. The biggest adventure ever. The girl blinked. "Are you coming?" The mother hesitated, just for a second. Then she nodded. "Soon." It was a lie. They both knew it. Behind them, alarms pulsed red across the bay. Final boarding for Civilian Group 3. Seal the pods. Technicians moved fast, too fast, because slowing down meant thinking, and thinking meant braking. Yora turned away. She couldn't watch any longer. Instead, she looked at the tactical feed. At the sky above Earth, humanity was fighting. Of course it was. 2,000 warships. Every nation, every flag, gone, unified. For the first time in history, humanity stood together. And it didn't matter. The Dominion fleet didn't advance. It didn't need to. It simply erased. Human ships fired first. Missiles, rail guns, plasma, everything. It lit up the darkness like a second sun. For a moment, just a moment, it looked like hope. Then the Dominion responded. No warning, no visible weapons, just absence. Ships vanished, entire squadrons gone. No explosions, no debris, just empty space where thousands of lives had been seconds before. Fleet integrity dropping, 30%, 50%, 70%. The feed glitched, stabilized, and then nothing. 90 minutes. That's how long the war lasted. 90 minutes. To end 10,000 years of human history. Then came the bombardment. Yora watched it through deep ocean sensors, because even a kilometer of water couldn't hide the truth. The first impact hit what used to be New York. A tungsten rod dropped from orbit, moving at a fraction of light speed. It didn't explode. It didn't need to. The city simply disappeared. The shockwave flattened everything for miles. Steel turned to dust, concrete to vapor, people gone before they could even understand what was happening. Then London, then Tokyo, then Beijing, then Mumbai, then Cairo, then Sao Paulo, then Moscow, one by one, like lights being switched off, impact saturation increasing globally, surface temperature rising beyond survivable limits, oceanic evaporation detected. And then it got worse. The antimatter strikes turned what remained into glass, molten continents, burning rivers of stone, the planet itself screaming. And finally, the biodissolvers, a soft mist, almost beautiful, floating down from orbit like gentle rain. Where it touched, life ended, not burned, not destroyed, removed. A man running across a street, gone. A child hiding under a table, gone. A dog waiting at a door, gone. 7 billion lives, reduced to silence. In less than 6 hours, in the vault, no one screamed anymore. There was nothing left to say. Yora stood alone in the command center, the last officer not yet in a pod. On the screen in front of her, Earth, or what was left of it. The blue was gone. The green was gone. The clouds were gone. In their place, a broken sphere of blackened fire, cracked, burning, dying. "Captain." Ember's voice was softer now, almost careful. "It is time." Yura didn't move. Her eyes stayed on the screen. "How many?" she asked. A pause, longer than before. "My sensors detect no remaining human life signs on the surface." Another pause. "I am sorry." Yura closed her eyes. 10 seconds. That's all she allowed herself. 10 seconds. To feel everything. The grief, the rage, the weight of 7 billion ghosts. Then she opened them again and locked it all away. Forever launched the ships. Deep beneath the ocean, 36 bays opened. Engines ignited. Silent. Powerful. Final. The last of humanity rose. Not with fire. Not with noise. But with quiet defiance. Above them, Earth burned. And no one was left to remember it. Except them. The ships didn't roar. They didn't blaze. They slipped into the darkness. Silently. 36 launch bays. 36 vessels. The last fragments of humanity. From the ocean floor, they rose. Through boiling water. Through collapsing pressure waves. Through a planet that was no longer alive. And when they broke the surface, the sky was gone. Ash. Fire. A dead orange glow where blue once lived. Above them, the Dominion fleet. Still there. Still watching. Still searching. But Ember had calculated everything. Launching during peak bombardment interference, the AI said calmly, electromagnetic saturation at maximum levels. Detection probability minimal. The ship scattered. Instantly. No formation. No pattern. No signal. Each one fired its engines and vanished in a different direction. 36 pods. 36 futures. On a Dominion flagship high above orbit, a sensor officer paused. Something flickered. A brief anomaly. Movement where there shouldn't be any. He leaned forward, zoomed in. The signal blurred, distorted by radiation, by heat, by chaos. He frowned, studied it. For a moment, just a moment, he considered reporting it. Then he leaned back, relaxed. The oceans are boiling, he muttered. Of course readings are unstable. He dismissed it, cleared the alert, and moved on. That decision, that single moment of indifference, would echo across 3,000 years. Inside the lead ship, silence. Captain Urising sat alone in the pilot's chair. The stars stretched ahead of her, cold, distant, endless. Behind her, rows of cryogenic pods, 200,000 souls, frozen, preserved, waiting. Humanity reduced to silence. Again, course plotted. Ember said, destination, Outer Rim Sector 7742. Estimated travel time, 4 to 7 years. Yura didn't respond. Her hand moved slowly. Into her pocket, she pulled something out. A small handful of dirt. Brown. Ordinary. The last soil from Earth. She stared at it. For a long time. This, her voice was quiet, barely above a whisper, is all that's left. Ember didn't correct her. Didn't argue. Didn't speak. Because it understood. Yura closed her fingers around the soil. Tight. Create a file, she said. Designation. Remembrance protocol. Confirmed. I want every ship, every colony, every generation after us. Her voice hardened. To know what happened. The stars reflected in her eyes. Cold now. Focus. I want them to remember the sky. The fire. The silence. A pause. Then, I want them to remember the girl. Her voice faltered, just slightly, with a stuffed bay. Ember processed a request, stored it, secured it, and the purpose of this protocol, the AI asked. Yura didn't hesitate, not even for a second, so they never forget. A breath, slow, controlled, and so they know exactly. Her grip tightened around the soil. Why we are coming back. Silence filled the ship. Heavy, final. Shall I assign a designation for future action? Ember asked. Yura looked out at the stars, at the endless dark ahead. She thought about Earth, about fire, about glass, about 7 billion voices that would never speak again. Then she answered, call it. A pause, the reckoning. The words settled into the system. Locked, permanent. Yura stood, walked slowly to her cryogenic pod. She stopped for a moment, looked back once, at the sleeping rows behind her, at the last of her species. Then she lay down. Wake me when we arrive. The pod closed. Cold wrapped around her. Silence took her. And just like that, humanity disappeared. Behind them, Earth burned. The Dominion celebrated. Filed their reports. Closed the record. Species 4217. Status eliminated. And the galaxy moved on. It forgot. It always did. But in the dark between the stars, 36 ships carried something dangerous, something patient, something that would not die. Humanity. And humanity remembers the first world they found tried to kill them. Kepler 9917b, a dead planet orbiting a dying star. The light was wrong. Dim. Red. Like the sun itself was bleeding out. Atmosphere thin, Ember reported. Carbon dioxide dominant. Surface temperature range, -80 to 60 degrees. A pause. Conclusion, non-viable for standard human habitation. Yora looked at the data, then out at the planet, a wasteland of iron dust and shattered glass. Nothing moved. Nothing lived. Nothing had ever lived. She nodded once. This will do. The first year broke them. Habitat domes went up fast. Too fast. Cracks formed within weeks. Pressure leaks killed entire sections in minutes. One moment, people talking, working, living. The next, silence. The air gone. The body still. Seal the breach. Section C is gone. Repeat. Gone. They learned quickly. Or they died. The dust was worse. Fine. Metallic. Everywhere. It got into everything. Machinery failed. Filters clogged. Food spoiled. And lungs. Children coughed first. Small bodies struggling against something they couldn't fight. Respiratory failure increasing among miners, Ember warned. Recommendation, upgrade filtration systems. They did. Too late for some. They buried them under iron skies. Water had to be mined, deep underground. Frozen veins of ice hidden beneath kilometers of rock. Drills broke constantly. Every drop of water. Earned. Every drop. Fought for. But they survived. Because humans always do. Other ships reported in. 36 signals. All alive. But not all well. One colony settled on a frozen moon. Surface temperature. Unlivable. Survival rate. Dropping. Another chose a high-gravity world. Bones shattered under their own weight. One built their entire civilization inside a hollow asteroid. A spinning rock in empty space. 20 kilometers wide. Nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. Every colony suffered. Every colony lost people. But not one failed. Yora watched it all. From New Dawn, the name they gave to the dead world that had taken so much from them. She stood before the gathered leaders. 36 ships. 36 futures. Connected across light years. Look around you, she said. No one came here because it was easy. Her voice carried. Hard. Unbreakable. We came here because no one else would. A pause. The Dominion does not come to places like this. Her eyes sharpened. They don't need to. She stepped forward. They believe we're dead. Silence. And we're going to make sure they keep believing that. One voice spoke up. Captain Okapoor, Seed Ship 12. We could find better worlds, he argued. Closer to the core. More habitable. More stable. Murmurs of agreement. Yora shut it down instantly. Better worlds are watch worlds. The room went still. They monitor everything worth having. Her voice dropped. So we become something not worth noticing. A beat. We grow where nothing grows. We survive where nothing survives. Her gaze swept across every screen, every face, and when the time comes, the words landed like iron. We won't be the same species they tried to kill. That was the beginning of the Crucible Doctrine. Suffering was no longer a weakness. It was a tool. Pain wasn't something to avoid. It was something to use, to sharpen, to harden, to transform. Years passed, then decades. The weak died. The survivors adapted. Children grew up knowing nothing but struggle. No oceans, no forests, no blue skies. Only iron, dust, and survival. But something changed. Slowly, quietly, humanity stopped breaking and started becoming something else. Stronger, harder, unforgiving. Yora grew old, slower, weaker, but her mind, sharp as ever. She stood one last time beneath the dome of New Dawn, looking out at the red horizon, a world that had tried to kill them, and failed. Her granddaughter stood beside her. "What happens next?" the girl asked. Yora didn't hesitate. "We build." A breath. "We remember." Her eyes hardened. "And one day." A final pause. "We return." She died at 103. Not in battle, not in fear, but watching a dead world slowly become home. Her last words echoed through generations. "Do not forget. Do not forgive. And do not stop building." And humanity listened. Time didn't pass. It reshaped them. The first generation survived. Barely. The second generation adapted. The third generation changed everything. It began with necessity. It always does. On a radiation-heavy world orbiting a dying neutron star, humans were dying too fast. Cells breaking down. DNA unraveling. Bodies failing before they reached 40. Dr. Morikayam refused to accept it. "We don't leave this planet," she said. "So we change." The first modifications were small, microscopic, gene corrections, radiation resistance, cellular repair acceleration. They worked, not perfectly, not safely, but enough to survive. Then someone asked a question that changed everything. If we can fix what's broken. A pause. Why stop there? The upgrade spread, quietly at first, then everywhere. Bones became denser, 30% stronger. Muscle fibers restructured, more efficient, more powerful. Reflexes sharpened, faster than before. Immune systems evolved, not just to fight disease, but to predict it. Lifespan stretched. 100 years became 2, then 3. A human at 200 was no longer old, just experienced. But the most important change couldn't be seen. The mind, the ancient human response, fight or flight, was rewritten, refined, controlled. Fear still existed. Pain still existed. But they no longer ruled. A human could feel terror and still think, could feel agony and still act, could stand in the worst moment imaginable and remain focused. They were still human. They still laughed, still loved, still held their children close. But beneath it, something else had formed, something harder, something the galaxy had never seen before. And they didn't stop there. While their bodies evolved, their machines surpassed them. The Dominion had rules, limits, agreements. Technology could only advance so far, no faster, no further. Stability, control, power. Humanity had none of those limits. Because humanity didn't exist, they experimented freely, dangerously, relentlessly. The first breakthrough changed everything. 0-point energy, unlimited power, no fuel, no limits, no constraints. Colonies that once rationed every watt now had more energy than they could use. Cities expanded, factories multiplied, ships grew. What was impossible became routine. Then came movement. The Dominion bent space. Slowly, carefully, humanity cut through it. The slipstream drive. A Dominion ship could cross the galaxy in years. A human ship, in days. Distance stopped mattering. Time stopped mattering. The galaxy got smaller. And then they built something they hoped they would never use. The resonance cannon. A weapon that didn't target ships. Didn't target planets. It targeted stars. A single calibrated pulse could destabilize a sun, dim it, kill it, end entire systems. They tested it once, on an empty star, far away, uninhabited. The light flickered, collapsed, and in that moment, humanity understood something terrifying. There was no longer anything in the galaxy they couldn't destroy. So they locked it away, buried the design, sealed it in ember's deepest core, not as a weapon, but as a warning. Centuries passed, then millennia. Humanity spread across the outer rim, 4 to 7 worlds, hidden, scattered, untouchable. 12 billion people, not the same people who fled Earth. Something else, forged by pressure, by time, by purpose. They trained constantly, not because they wanted war, but because they knew one day it would come. Children learned survival before comfort, strategy before history, strength before ease. There were no civilians, only humans who hadn't been tested yet. And at the center of it all, a single truth remained, unchanged, untouched, unforgotten, a handful of soil, sealed in glass, passed down through generations, a reminder of what was taken, of what was lost, of what must never happen again. 3,000 years after Earth burned, humanity stood ready, not loud, not visible, but waiting, patient, watching, growing stronger in the dark. And somewhere, deep in the data core of an ancient AI, a file remained active. Designation, remembrance protocol, status, unchanged, purpose, awaiting execution. They didn't rush. That was the difference. The Dominion had power, but it had grown comfortable. Humanity had nothing, so it became patient. 3,000 years passed, not in chaos, not in desperation, but in purpose. Every world, every colony, every human life moved in the same direction, forward. New Dawn was no longer a wasteland. The red skies remained. The iron dust still drifted across the surface. But now, there were cities, not fragile domes, not temporary shelters, permanent structures, forged from alloy and stone, built to survive anything. Other worlds followed. Frozen moons turned into fortresses. High-gravity planets became training grounds, where only the strongest could stand. Asteroid colonies evolved into shipyards, hidden inside spinning rock, invisible, untouchable. 47 worlds, scattered across the outer rim, each one harsh, each one unforgiving, each one perfect. Population grew slowly, carefully, no waste, no excess. Every life mattered, every mind trained, every body prepared. Because this wasn't just survival anymore. This was preparation. At the center of their civilization was memory, not history, not stories. Memory, alive, preserved, sacred, every year, on every world. At the exact same moment, humanity stopped, work ceased, machines powered down, cities fell silent, and people gathered in open spaces, in domes, in underground holes carved from stone. Children, adults, elders, all of them. Each person was given the same thing, a pinch of soil, real soil, from Earth, the last of it, divided, preserved, protected for 3,000 years. They held it in their hands, and together they spoke the words, "We were." A pause, "We are." Another, "We will be." The ritual ended the same way. The soil was returned, sealed again, never used, never wasted, because it wasn't just date. It was proof. Proof that Earth had existed, proof that humanity had lived, proof that something had been taken, and something would be reclaimed. The Remembrance Council governed it all, not like the governments of old Earth. No politics, no distractions, just focus, purpose, direction. Their law was simple, carved into the walls of every council chamber. We do not forget. We do not forgive. Not out of hatred, but out of clarity, because forgetting meant weakness, and weakness was what had nearly destroyed them. Fleet construction accelerated, not visible, not obvious, hidden, inside asteroids, inside moons, inside planets no one would ever scan. 10,000 warships, silent, waiting, slipstream corridors connected to colonies, invisible highways through space, undetectable. Humanity could move anywhere, at any time, without being seen. And still, they waited, not because they had to, because they chose to. Patience became their greatest weapon. At the center of New Dawn, in a chamber carved deep into iron rock, the council gathered, 24 leaders, different worlds, different lives, one purpose. At the center of the table, a glass case. Inside it, a handful of soil, the original, the same soil Eurosing had carried from Earth. 3,000 years ago, Fleet Admiral Caio Vasquez stood before them, young by their standards, only 112 years old. But her eyes carried something older, Something inherited. Something remembered. The time has come. The room didn't react, because they already knew. Ember has completed its analysis. A gesture. The display lit up. Dominion space. Vast. Powerful. But stagnant. They have not fought a real war in 2,000 years. Another gesture. Fleet formations. Outdated. Predictable. They believe there is no threat. Silence. They believe we are gone. A pause. Vasquez stepped forward. For 3,000 years. Her voice was calm. Controlled. We have waited. She looked around the room. At every face. Every child raised. Every ship built. Every sacrifice made. A beat. All of it. Her hand rested gently on the glass case. On the soil. Has been for this moment. Silence. Heavy. Final. I am requesting authorization. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't need to. To begin Operation Reckoning. One by one, hands rose. No hesitation. No doubt. 24 votes. Unanimous. 3,000 years of patience. Ended in a single moment. Vasquez turned to the communications officer. Send the signal. The officer straightened. What message, Admiral? Vasquez looked down. At the soil. At everything it represented. Then she spoke. 2 words. A pause. We remember. And across 4 to 7 worlds, something ancient awakened. Ships powered on. Engines ignited. Weapons armed. Not in anger. Not in chaos. But in purpose. The waiting was over. And somewhere, far beyond the outer rim, a civilization that had forgotten humanity was about to be reminded. The first thing to disappear wasn't a fleet. It was a signal. Outpost Valen 12 had existed for 600 years. Nothing had ever happened there. 18 technicians. Routine scans. Endless boredom. Until one moment. It was there. The next, it wasn't. No explosion. No distress call. No debris. Just gone. 3 hours later, a junior officer noticed a gap. Ran diagnostics. Checked systems. Recalibrated sensors. Equipment failure, he concluded, and filed a maintenance request. The next day, another outpost vanished. Then 2 more. Then 6. Then 12. Signals disappearing like stars going dark. One by one. Still, no one understood. Because nothing like this had ever happened before. By the end of the week, 31 outposts were gone. Erased. And for the first time in centuries, the Dominion paid attention. High Arbiter Thaline read the reports in silence. Old, experienced, untested, he had never fought a war. He had never needed to. Sense of degradation, he said calmly. These outer stations are ancient. His advisor hesitated. 31 failures in 9 days. Arbiter, the pattern suggests. Old systems fail in patterns. Thaline waved it away. There's nothing out there. A pause. There hasn't been for 3,000 years. He was wrong. Catastrophically wrong. 100 light-years away. Fleet Admiral Kale Vasquez watched the tactical display. 31 markers. All dark. All gone. Phase 1 complete. Her officer reported. Dominion sensor net compromised. Blind zone established. A section of space 400 light-years wide. Now invisible. No eyes. No warnings. No protection. Vasquez nodded once. Begin Phase 2. A pause. And send the Ash Walkers. They move like ghosts. Small teams. 6 to 12 operatives. No insignia. No identity. Only purpose. They slip through the blind zone. Into Dominion space. Undetected. Unseen. Their armor shifted appearance. Holographic skins. To one species, they looked like allies. To another, citizens. To everyone, they looked like they belonged. They spoke every language. Moved through cities. Through stations. Through military hubs. Like they had always been there. They didn't attack. Not yet. They observed. Mapped fleets. Tracked supply lines. Identified weaknesses. And quietly, they planted something. small devices, quantum relays, hidden in the heart of Dominion infrastructure. Waiting. Months passed. No alarms, no suspicions, because the Dominion wasn't looking. It didn't know it needed to. Then, the message came. It didn't come from one place. It came from everywhere, every channel, every frequency, every world. At the same moment, the first thing they heard was not a voice, it was a sound. Wind, cold, empty, moving across a dead world. A sound no one in the Dominion had ever heard before, because it was the sound of Earth. After 4:30 seconds, the entire galaxy listened, confused, uneasy. Then, the voice came. This is Fleet Admiral Cale Vasquez. On capital worlds, on warships, in homes, across 12 species, everything stopped, all of the Terran recency. Silence, because that name should not exist. 3,000 years ago. Her voice was calm, clear, unshaking. You committed genocide. Screens flickered, records opened, files pulled from archives long buried. You burned our world. You killed our people. You erased our name from the stars. Across the Dominion, fear began to spread. Not panic, something worse. Recognition. You believed we were gone. A pause. You were wrong. On Athera Prime, High Arbiter Thaline dropped his glass. It shattered across marble. He didn't notice. We survived. The words echoed everywhere, in the places you did not look, in the dark you ignored. Her voice didn't rise, didn't need to, and we built. A beat. We are not the same species you tried to destroy. On military command stations, officers scrambled, trying to trace the signal. Every result came back the same. Nothing. Everywhere. Untraceable. We are what you made us. Another pause, and then, the line that changed everything. We are awake. Silence. Absolute. And we are coming. A final breath, and we remember everything. The transmission ended. No explosion. No attack. Just truth. And across the Dominion, chaos began, not because of what had happened, but because of what was about to. And far beyond their borders, in the dark, human ships moved forward. Finally, they expected a war. They prepared for a battle. What they got was a demonstration. Valen's Gate, a narrow corridor of space, a natural choke point, the only path from the outer rim into the heart of the Dominion. General Vaesh stood on the bridge of his flagship, 800 warships behind him, the largest fleet assembled in 2,000 years. Weapons charged, shields active, formation perfect. Let them come, he said, confident, certain, because this was overwhelming force. Then the humans arrived. 60 ships. That was all. 60. A ripple of amusement moved through the Dominion fleet. Brave, one officer muttered, or suicidal. Vaesh smiled faintly. This will be quick. He raised his hand. All ships advance. 800 warships surged forward, weapons igniting, energy building, power rising. The humans didn't move. They didn't retreat. They didn't respond. They just waited. Fire. 800 ships unleash everything. Plasma, missiles, particle beams. A storm of destruction, bright enough to turn space white. The attack hit, and nothing happened. No explosions, no damage. The human shields didn't flicker, didn't strain, didn't react at all. It was like throwing rain at a mountain. Silence fell across the Dominion fleet. What was that? Someone whispered. Then, the humans moved, and they disappeared. Not cloaked, not hidden, gone, removed from space itself. Dominion sensors scanned frantically. Nothing. Empty space. Then, they came back. Inside the formation, 60 ships, now scattered across the Dominion fleet. Point-blank range. Everywhere. At once. Impossible. Reform formation. Target lock. Where did they? Too late. The humans fired. Not beams. Not missiles. Something else. Gravity. Compressed singularities. Launched like bullets. The first hit struck a Dominion cruiser. Its shields didn't break. They ceased. Collapsed. As if they had never existed. The hull followed. Crushed inward. Folded. Compressed into nothing. Gone. The second hit. Another ship. Same result. Then 10. Then 50. Then hundreds. There was no fight. No resistance. No chance. Dominion weapons couldn't lock on. Their systems couldn't track. Their communications suddenly died. Across every frequency. Only static. The Ash Walker's devices activated. At the exact same moment. Orders couldn't be given. Formations couldn't be maintained. Ships couldn't coordinate. The fleet shattered. Not physically. Strategically. 800 ships. Turned into 800 isolated targets. And the humans hunted them. One by one. Minute 3. Half the fleet was gone. Minute 5. There was no formation left. Minute 7. Only fragments remained. General Varash stood frozen, watching everything collapse. This isn't possible. But it was. Minute 11. His flagship was hit. 3 gravity pulses. Simultaneously, the ship folded, inward, like paper crushed in an invisible hand. Then, nothing. 800 warships. Destroyed. In 11 minutes. The humans lost. Nothing. No ships. No lives. Across the Dominion. The battle log spread like wildfire. Analyzed. Replayed. Studied. Again. And again. And again. The conclusion never changed. This wasn't a gap in power. It was an abyss. The Dominion was not losing. It had already lost. On Athera Prime, High Arbiter Thaline sat alone, hands trembling. The report glowed in front of him. 800 ships lost. 0 human casualties. He opened the ancient file. Species 4217. Homo sapiens. The image appeared. A human woman. An ambassador. Small. Fragile. Pleading for her species to live. He stared at it. At what they had destroyed. At what they had created. Then he closed the file. Slowly. Because now he understood. This wasn't revenge. This was consequence. And there was nothing left that could stop it. Far beyond Valen's gate, the human fleet reformed, perfect, untouched, and turned toward the heart of the Dominion. They didn't rush. They didn't celebrate. They simply moved forward. Because for them, this was never about winning. It was about finishing. They expected fire. They expected extinction. They expected humanity to do exactly what had been done to them. Burn worlds. Erase species. End everything. The galaxy held its breath. And waited. Humanity did something else. The attack stopped. Not slowed. Not reduced. Stopped. Across Dominion space. Weapons went silent. Ships held position. No further strikes. Only one thing continued. Messages. Fleet Admiral Kale Vasquez stood before the galaxy. Her image broadcast across every world. Every system. Every surviving network. No anger. No rage. No triumph. Only truth. 3,000 years ago. Her voice carried across billions of lives. Your governments decided that my species should die. Silence. We could do the same to you. A pause. We have the power. No one doubted that anymore. We have the weapons. They had seen them, and we have 3,000 years of grief. A breath that would justify it. The galaxy waited for the word, for the order, for the end, but we will not. Confusion spread, shock, disbelief. We are not what you tried to make us. Her eyes didn't waver. We did not survive 3,000 years in the dark. A pause. To become you. The words hit harder than any weapon. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your power. We do not want your submission. Another pause. What we want. Silence tightened. Is justice. The terms followed. Simple. Unavoidable. The Dominion. Dissolved. No more council. No more authority over other species. Every civilization. Free. Second. Every species involved in Earth's destruction would publicly acknowledge the truth. No secrecy, no hidden records. A galaxy-wide admission. We were afraid. And because we were afraid, we committed genocide. And third, a monument built in orbit around Earth. A ring of light, visible across the stars. 7 billion names. Every life lost, never to be forgotten again. Most accepted, not out of kindness, out of understanding. There was no alternative. Some spoke with sincerity, others with fear, but all spoke, and the galaxy heard. Only one species refused. The Veloxi, warriors, proud, unyielding. The elimination of humanity was correct, their commander declared. The only mistake was not finishing the job. They gathered everything, 15,000 warships, the largest fleet ever assembled. A final stand. Vasquez gave them one chance. Stand down. They answered with fire. 15,000 ships unleashed everything they had. The attack struck and did nothing. Human shields absorbed it like it didn't exist. Then, humanity responded, not with destruction, with a message. 5 ships moved forward, forming a pattern, a structure. Light began to spread between them, growing, expanding. Then, the star changed. 4 seconds. The Veloxi's sun dimmed. 10% of its light, gone. Across their worlds, the sky darkened. Temperatures dropped, and every living being understood. This wasn't an attack. It was a demonstration. We can end you. A pause. We choose not to. Silence filled the battlefield. The Veloxi commander stood frozen. For the first time in his life, he understood fear, not of death, but of inevitability. He gave the order, the hardest order of his life. Stand down. 15,000 ships powered down. Just like that, the war ended, not with annihilation, but with understanding. Years passed. The Dominion was gone. The galaxy changed. Slowly, imperfectly, but it changed. And humanity returned home. The solar system was silent, forgotten, unvisited for 3,000 years. Then, human ships arrived, not as conquerors, as survivors. They saw Jupiter, unchanged, uncaring. Saturn, still beautiful. Mars, frozen in time. And then, Earth. It was worse than memory. No oceans, no green, only glass, black, burned, dead. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Vasquez stepped forward, placed her hand against the viewing glass. We're here. A whisper. We came back. And for the first time in 3,000 years, humanity grieved together. Then Ember spoke. Soft, steady, Earth can be restored. Everything changed again. It took 200 years to rebuild the atmosphere, to return water, to grow life. The first rain fell. Soft, quiet, on a world that had forgotten what rain was. The first green appeared. Small, fragile, but alive. And slowly, Earth began to breathe again. Centuries passed. Oceans returned. Forests grew. Animals walked the land. Children were born, under open skies, for the first time in 3,000 years. And one day, an old woman stood in a field of green, grass moving in the wind. Above her, a ring of light in the sky. 7 billion names, burning softly, never fading. She opened a small container. Inside, a handful of soil. Old Earth, carried across time, across stars, across generations. She knelt and pressed it into the ground, mixing past and present, loss and life. Then she stood, looked at the sky, and spoke the words every human knew. We were. A breath. We are. Another. We will be. The wind carried her voice, across fields, across oceans, across a living world. And somewhere, deep inside an ancient AI, a file was updated. Species 4217. Homo sapiens. Status. No longer eliminated. Now, returned. And beneath it, a final word. One no machine was meant to feel. But this one did. Home.